Our first speaker today, Mr. Gary Byrne. Gary is the author of a book called Crisis of Character and Secrets of the Secret Service. He served as federal law enforcement for 30 years. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Gary Byrne.
Good afternoon. How's everybody? Okay. I'm sure you're saying, what could this guy possibly tell us that we don't already know? Secrets of the Secret Service was the first book I wrote. It came out in 2016. I'm a kid from Ridley Park. I was born in Taylor Hospital. I got this great job at the United States Secret Service Uniform Division. I loved it. I was living the dream. I was a high school graduate working at the White House. I had a post right outside the Oval Office. When I first started working at the White House, George H.W. Bush was president. And he was there. I was there with him for about 2 years. And his family was the Bush family, and they were great, and they were kind, and they were funny, and they were humble. And it set us up for the next president in kind of a bad way, because I just expected everybody would be like that. So then there's an election, and half the country decides they want a change, and Bill Clinton becomes president. But what the American people didn't realize was what they were getting from Arkansas was actually called Billary. It's Bill and Hillary put together. And she wasn't elected, and she was definitely pulling some strings. So my unfortunate claim to fame from the Secret Service was that I unfortunately became the first employee in the history of the Secret Service to ever be forced to testify against the president that he was protecting. I had to testify against President Bill Clinton in his impeachment scandal. The last thing exactly, somebody said, well, yeah. I usually use other words, but I won't use them here. So, but listen, I never wanted to talk about this guy's personal life. It's not my business. It's the way he lives his life. It's between him and his family. The problem is that he signed a legal affidavit stating that he never had a relationship with an intern. And like in true Bill Clinton fashion, it wasn't just enough to say that. He had to double down. And what he said was that he had never been alone with her in the Oval Office. And so the grand jury was going on. People went to the grand jury and said, I know that he's lying, and the guys you need to talk to are from the Secret Service Uniform Division. And so the grand jury started interviewing people. To make a long story short, the first time in my life I rise to the top of a group of about 25 people that were involved in this from my division. I rise to the top of number one. Our case went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court chief at the time was Judge Rehnquist, and he deemed that he understood the position we were in, but he also understood that we were federal police officers. He gave me 72 hours to surrender, be prosecuted myself. I can't tell you what that feels like. When you're looking at your coworkers who are the best people you've ever worked with in your life. I mean, these people laid it on the line every day. Nobody in the Secret Service understands what a 40-hour work week is. And I realize that's not unusual, but the Secret Service works night and day, and they take care of these people no matter how bizarre they are, no matter how crazy it gets. And then they were going to force us, because the bottom line was this all could have been stopped. If Bill Clinton had a spine and was any semblance of a man, he should have come forward and said, you know what, you got me, finally. But he didn't. He doubled down again. And he made this crazy statement that he didn't have a relationship with her publicly. What he didn't know was that there was DNA evidence on a dress. Now, the truth is, we didn't know about the dress. We had no idea. That was something between the intern and her friend, Linda Tripp, and who is also an unsung hero in this. The left did a very good job of trashing Linda Tripp too. It's not true. She was a good person who did the legal, correct, patriotic thing. But setting that aside, we didn't know about the dress. And so when that came out, we were relieved, but we still had to go and testify. And by the time it was over, and they actually impeached the president and decided not to remove him, myself personally and at least 10 other of the Uniform Division people had given more than 50 hours of testimony, either the lawyers or the grand jury. It went on for months. It literally destroyed some people's lives. And, but, you know, we took it, we went on with our lives, and we kept doing the job. I never thought I would talk about these things. After we were attacked on 9/11, I transferred over to the Federal Air Marshal Service. And I started seeing things differently. For the lack of a better description, I like to say I stopped kind of drinking the Secret Service Kool-Aid. And I don't mean that to sound negative. The Secret Service is a great group of people. The job is very important, but the truth is the Secret Service, and I talk about this in my second book, Secrets of the Secret Service, they're just a government agency with all the kindness of the IRS and all the competency of the Postal Service. They've got a lot of problems, but they're good men and women, but it's still this giant government agency that can't dance and can't get out of its own way. And there's many examples of that. I won't go into it now. But I decided that it was time for me to tell my story. And with the help of my co-writer, Grant Schmidt, I decided I would retire. I could have worked till last year, but I retired in 2016. And I could have stayed about 4 more years, but I decided that it was time to retire, write this story, good or bad. I truly believed that they would destroy me. I truly believed that they would take away my pension. That did not happen. The first book was very successful thanks to Sean Hannity and Fox and a bunch of other people and hundreds of radio shows. And I'm obviously I'm still here, so that's good. And so the main point to this of me speaking is not so much to sell the books, but to tell you, if you doubt how corrupt they are, you know, if you don't want to read my book or, you know, go to the library and get it, if you read my book, anything else you've heard about these people and about their system, and have no doubt, Joe Biden might be their candidate, but I'm telling you right now, these people are still running the Democratic Party. I guarantee it. They are, and I guarantee it. And I'm not so sure she's completely out of it yet, but that's my craziness. Don't buy into it. But anyway, so that's who I am. That's what my books are about. George, can I take a couple questions? Okay. If anybody has any questions about politics, about protection, about whatever, I'll be glad to take one. Anybody? Yes, go ahead, dear.
What was it like working up in contrast from working up under George W. Bush, who's my man?
Yeah.
and Bill Clinton.
The difference between protecting the Bush family and the Clinton family. So it was night and day. President Clinton was okay. I mean, listen, he's the kind of guy you want to have a beer with, but you don't trust him to drive your 27-year-old niece home. So that's, and I know that's hard, but that's what I experienced. That's not what I've read. That's not what I've heard from other people. That's what I experienced. The Bush family was funny. They were humorous. They had a dry humor. Mrs. Bush was very kind, and she was the person you saw on TV pretty much. I'll tell you this. This is one of my favorite stories about her. You know, it's the summer of 1991, and so they only have a short period of time left. It's hot. It's Washington, D.C. She walks out of the mansion one day, and she turns to me. She turns to me as she walks out, and she looks at me, and she knows I'm new. She knows knows the Secret Service. She knows the Uniform Division guys. She realized when there's new people in there. She points at me and she goes, "Have them turn the humidity down." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I grabbed the phone, and the control center picked up on the other end of the phone, and they go, "What do you want, Byrne?" I'm like, never mind. And I hung up the phone, and she was getting in the limousine. She was laughing. Her staff was laughing. She got me. That's who she really was. They were very nice people. The contrast is that they were a normal family. When the Clintons came in, every rumor and crazy thing you heard from Arkansas, and I used to refer to it as tabloid news back then. The truth was, it was real. It was true. It all, you know, they basically took the Arkansas Roadshow and brought it to Washington, and I mean, it wasn't all bad. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't trade a minute of it for anything. You take the bad with the good. You don't stand in front of your flag and raise your right hand and then change your mind halfway through. You got to finish it up. And I don't regret any of it. And I hit some of the contrasts in the book of what it's like to protect one family and the other. And I talk about some of the former presidents that I ran into, in protection of the current president at that time. And another question?
I gotta get the book.
Did you hear anything else about the Epstein case? It seems to have gone silent.
So, Jeffrey Epstein, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
So, I wish I really had an answer for you. I will tell you this, that I know from, I don't have like inside information, but I have inside intuition. And I know when the Clintons were there, just before they left, their last year, I know Epstein visited the White House at least twice while I was there. Now, nothing bizarre happened, but we knew who he was. And the fun thing is even back then, nobody seemed to be able to explain where all his money came from. Do I think we've heard the end? No. I think we haven't heard the end, but I will say this, based on my experience, I don't think we're going to get the conclusion that we hope to get. I don't. So, another question? I'll make this the last one.
Did she really throw a lamp at you?
Okay. So, no, she did not throw a lamp at me. So I'm going to tell two quick stories. The first one was, it actually wasn't a lamp, it was a vase. It was a very expensive vase. It was part of the White House collection. And the way that story went was, I came to work one morning, and it was early in the morning, and I came in to work out like I normally did. And after I changed up, I was headed over to my post, and I ran into one of the housemen who takes care of the White House. He's an electrician. And he said, hey, go talk to your friend over at the ground floor. There was a big fight last night. He's got a story to tell you. So I went over to see my buddy, and he told me that the president and Mrs. Clinton had started arguing. They went upstairs. And I realize it sounds like we're a bunch of, people standing around listening to other people's fights, but you have to put it in context. You can only be so far away from people and protect them. And the White House is old. It's made of steel. It's made of marble. And they were screaming very loud. The sound comes down the elevator shaft and the stairwell. Anyway, at some point during their disagreement, there was a crashing sound. And when it was investigated, they found a broken blue vase. And so my friend told me the story, and as soon as he told me the story, and I believed him, of course. I mean, we don't tell these stories to be rumor mongers. We tell these stories to let the other people know on the ship that day of what's going on, what is happening. We were already concerned about Mrs. Clinton's inability to control her anger. Internally, we were concerned about it. So, and there was, on top of 50 other things we were concerned about. But anyway, so I went over to the White House curator's office. From where I was standing outside the elevator shaft where my friend's post was on the ground floor, the curator's office was only about 25 steps away. And I stuck my head in the curator's office, and the curator was this older woman who basically you got the impression she tolerated everybody else in her life, just tolerated you, especially us. So I opened the door and I looked in and she said, "Can I help you, officer?" And I looked down and there was a cardboard box on a chair, and there was the vase in about 9 to 7 pieces. So I looked at the vase and I looked at her and said, "Nope, that's all I needed to see." And I went back to my post outside the Oval Office. So later on in the day when Bill Clinton came to the Oval Office, as soon as he walked in, I noticed there was a mark under his eye, and they seemed to be trying to conceal it with makeup. Now, it wasn't unusual to see the president wearing makeup because he might be doing taping that day, or recording a commercial or something, a promotion for a campaign or whatever, or a public service announcement. So anyway, but the mark was definitely there, and so. I mean, I kind of knew what was going on. I knew about the argument and the fight, and I knew it. I had experienced their behavior before. I'll say, put it like that. So anyway, so I said as the president walked into the Oval Office, I walked out the door where my post was. Myself and the agent closed the door, and I walked around to the secretary's office, and I said to his secretary, Betty Carey, and his assistant, Nancy Hernreich, I said, "Hey, that's an interesting mark under the president's eye." And Nancy Hernreich had been his friend for years, and she defended President Clinton no matter what. She turned to me and she said, "He's allergic to coffee." And I said, he's allergic to coffee under one eye? And Betty Curry was, trying to look like she was typing, and she looked at me. She's like, her look on her face was, "Will you get out of the office?"
Okay.
So I walked back out to my post. I made my point that we had noticed, what we saw, and so that's my last White House story. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up and tell you how grateful I am to be here, and thank you to George and everybody for asking me to be here and letting me come and tell my story. And again, if you have any questions, I'll be over here. And thank you again. God bless America.
Thank you.